Greetings, everyone. DFG here, Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys. James 1 and 5 says in our book, yes, our book, says that if any man lacks wisdom, let him go and ask the Most High, and that he would give that man, the wisdom that he lacks or that he is seeking. And, it's a very, very significant statement to say the least. Now, when I say to say the least, let me clarify here. Because everything of Yah is significant. It's beyond significant. So when I say to say the least, I mean from a standpoint that in the most humbling way, that fundamentally, if you're looking for an understanding of a better way to manage your time, manage your life, to manage your family, to manage your responsibilities effectively, I'm talking to the people of Yah, and for those who are not of Yah, the people, I'm talking to Hebrew Israelites is what I'm saying. But those of you who are not, like many others, you can graft in. You can graft from this, like grafting. You can graft from this knowledge as well. Because I'm going to share with you a story about a Samaritan woman and how that she was put in a position where she could graft or do grafting. And more or less, eat the crumbs from the master's table. Now, this is not a belittlement statement if you're a grafter. It is just a statement of true, pure wisdom. There's something better than maybe you could ever have dreamed that you could ascertain. And now you have access through the people and through the word. Make sense? Back to the people, to the Hebrew Israelite, male, female. The scripture teaches us clearly that if we lack wisdom, let us go before Yah and ask Yah for that wisdom. And he would grant us that wish. But we have to go in sincerity. We're not talking about the wisdom of this world, the cunning wisdom, the wisdom of the fallen ones, the wisdom that, the children of the Nephilim who are still here, the half men, half beasts, children that Genesis talked about. Revelation talks about them too. But Genesis talks about them also in chapter 1 and chapter 2. You got to really dig deep to see it. It's right there in front of your face. But without an instructor, without a teacher, without the Rahuk, you're going to read right by it and you'll never get to what I'm trying to say. And, and this message is not about that particular message. But the children of this world, they get their knowledge from underground, from the fallen ones that are down there. Talking about, the watchers. That's where they get the book of Enoch. We talked about that, before, how they went down and taught men all this wicked, conniving, self-destructive, power-grabbing, science. And that's the science that you see in effect today. And you'll see that most of those cabals down there are above now, but they go above and beneath. They go back and forwards. But they try to mislead you by having you looking up there, thinking there's something coming up there. It's funny. I think it's in the book of Acts, chapter 1, where the men of Judah, Israel, were looking up in the sky, waiting for Yeshua to return back. And this angel walks up there and says, "Why are you up there looking? Ain't nothing coming from out that sky for you." You follow me? He told me, "Why y'all up there glazing at the sky?" He's really telling them you really need to be looking down on the ground and look what's up under your feet. That's where your true problems is. You follow me? That's where your trouble is going to be. And if you think about it in today's time, most certainly it could never have been a more effective statement in these end times that we're dealing with right now. But I digress. But what I wanted to do is share this story with you. And I'm going to break this story down. I'm going to go in from the book of John. Gospel is what they call the writings of John. And I'm going to read to you from chapter 4. And it's a story. Some of you guys are familiar with this story. But I want to give you some insight on this story, a true definition of this story. And what I believe that Rahuk inside of me that dwells in every true believer is wanting us to glean or take away and get a better understanding of the relationship between the Most High, and those of us who are the children of the Most High, especially those of us who are seeking to learn more in these evil days, these last days, of our existence on this continent, on this planet. That says, let's get into the story again. I'm going to read to you from the book of John, chapter 4. Okay, He says, and when therefore Yeshua knew that the Pharisees had heard that Yeshua had made and immersed more disciples than John the Baptist, he left Judah and departed into Galilee. And he must needs to go to Samaria. And then he came to a city in Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the parcel of land that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now, Jacob's well was there, and Yeshua, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour of the day. And there came a woman of Samaria to draw water. And Yeshua said unto her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away to the city to buy food. And then the woman of Samaria said unto him, and by the way, Samaritan means half and half. They were half Gentile. In other words, they had Gentile blood and they had Hebrew blood in them. So they were what we would call today biracial, I guess. These were biracial, people who were seeking after the Most High because they had a blood relationship, but they did not have the covenant. Okay, they were not pure in terms of a pure breed, a pure blood. They did not have that covenant. And that's who were considered, Samaritans, just so you know what I'm talking about here. Okay. And then the woman of Samaria said to him, how is it that you being, a Jew of Judah, ask a drink of me, which is a woman of Samaria? And for the Judah, the Yehudans, have no dealings with the Samaritans. Yeshua answered her and said, if you knew the gift of Yah, and I like you when he says that, guys. Say, if you knew the gift of Yah. So what is the gift of Yah? Maybe we can explore that and get more understanding of that. But I know the best gift is the gift of wisdom. There are many, many, many gifts. But the foundational gift, the best gift, is getting an understanding. Solomon talks about that. With all you're getting an understanding. And he said that wisdom is the most precious thing. And that's what he was saying, that if you really knew who you were talking to, who you were in the presence of, he said you would ask for something greater than what you're asking about right now in terms of, how to get this water out of this well. All right? But let's go on. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that you being Jehudi ask a drink of me, which is a woman of Samaria? And for the Jehudans have no dealings with the Samaritans. And Yeshua answered her and said unto her, if you knew the gift of Yah, and who it is that says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked of him, and he would have given you living water. Living water. And the woman said unto him, sir, you have nothing to draw water with. The well is deep. From whence have you that living water? And these are people who come to us and say, well, why do you follow Yah? Now, what makes y'all feel that because you're the children of Yah, that somehow or another, that, we're supposed to hearken and we're supposed to honor and recognize you? I mean, after all, you're weak. You're at the bottom of the food chain. You seem to be the sickest among us. You seem to fight and you hate and you murder one another. You abandon your family. You abandon your friends. You're treacherous towards one another. And yet you want us to recognize you as the people of Yah. See, that's the kind of narrative that people say. That's what they use against us, to be honest with you. And because we have no eyes to see and ears to hear, so we lack understanding or we lack wisdom of Yah, we don't normally have the right response to those questions. We either become angry, defensive, for the most part, we just deny who we are. And we'll just say, well, everybody is the children of the Most High. Everybody has the children of the Most High because he said if you were my children, you would do as I asked you to do. This world does as the father of the fallen ones asked them to do. And we see it all the time. We just saw it again with this past paganistic holiday that they want to call Resurrection Sunday because they don't want to be honorable enough to say I'm still celebrating Easter and the rising of the sun, the fertilization of the sun, the fertilization in terms of the rabbit and the egg, and Esther, the goddess of, of fertility. They refuse to go back in and look at the origins of this information because if you go back to the origins of the information, you have to admit that you're practicing paganism, and you also have to admit that you're being a whore because you're committing adultery against Yah. I said it just like it is intended to be said, that you are a whore. You are whoring around with other gods, claiming that you're not a whore. And we're going to see with this, watch what happens as we get farther in the scripture, how the Samaritan woman tries to rationalize with Yah. And watch how Yah just turned the table on her. Let's keep on. Let's go a little farther. And the woman says, Sir, you have nothing to draw with. The well is deep. From whence have you that living water? Question mark. Are you greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well and drank thereof himself, his children, and his cattle? Yeshua answered the woman and said, Whosoever drinks of this water shall thirst again. So he said, when you serve these other gods, you're never going to be fulfilled. That's why you got to do it every year. Every year you got to go back and do the same. And you can't even wait a year to go back to those same days. Because you're going to go from Easter, then you're going to go back to Christmas, and then you're going to go back to, whatever other pagan, All Saints Day. You're going to Ash Wednesday. You're going to keep on going back to all these fallacies. You got to keep on doing them over and over and over again, because none of them are real. None of them can stand the test of time. None of them that enlightens and increases you as you grow in your walk. Or as you ought to be growing. But like Paul said, you don't grow because you're stunted. He said, you're like a babe. He said, well, you should be eating milk. Drinking milk. He said, you're still on the bottle. I'm sorry. He said, well, you should be eating meat. You're still on the bottle drinking milk. Because you can't get past your own little petty, self-righteous thoughts and ideas. You know what I'm saying? You have not because you ask not, as James said. What he meant to say, your judgment. Your judgment is off. He said, you don't judge righteous judgment. You judge based off of what you think is right. Because the same judgment that you may be judging another for, that other can come back and judge you can use judgment against you. It doesn't have to be the same thing. He lied and you stole something. And you're coming around and we live in a world because of this wickedness that abounds in the land, that we have levels of evil. You know what I'm saying? A level 1 evil, he lied. Level 2 evil is he stole. A level 4 evil is he committed adultery. A level 8 evil is he physically abused somebody. Level 10 evil is he murdered. Yet the scripture in Revelation chapter 21 verse 8 says the fearful, the unbelieving, the adulterous, the murder, etc., abominable, all of them will have their part in the lake of fire. There is no levels of wisdom. There's no level of wickedness. It's all. So when you're judging righteously, you have to go back and clean your whole slate. I have no sin on me, and I've been cleansed of that sin, and I can never even fall into that kind of debauchery ever again. And therefore, I'm going to come forward to you and ask you to walk away from the things that you're talking about when you're sharing with others, so-called judging others, that you go to these same individuals and you tell them the same thing, that the same Ra'uk that cleansed me can cleanse you. I'm not judging you. I'm speaking truth to you so that you may be able to self-judge, to self-quarantine, so to speak. How appropriate. Quarantine the soul, the spirit. Let's go on. Verse 14. But whoever drinks of that water shall give him, whosoever drinks of that water, I shall give him, the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him, a well of springing water up into everlasting life. Now, what does that mean? A well of everlasting water. In other words, that water that's in him. In other words, again, it's talking about the Rahuk and the wisdom that the Rahuk, the spirit, which is not our word. It's the Rahuk. But that Rahuk gives them that everlasting water for the rest of their lives. In other words, it's the knowledge of Yah. It's the knowledge of self. It's the knowledge of right, the knowledge of good, the knowledge of evil. How to circumvent evil and how to embrace the good. How to be content in the things that you have, but still have aspirations to do better. How to solve a problem. How to figure out a situation. How to draw healthy conclusions to problems. Living water. Let's go on. The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. In other words, she said, give me this water. Because she's still in her carnal mind. So she's thinking that this is something literal. She still thinks he's talking about a well somewhere with water in it. Because she's saying, give me this water so I don't have to thirst again. And then he perceives that, okay, let me get a little bit deeper with this woman because I need to make sure she understands who it is she's talking to. So when we're practicing, or when you're practicing, these abominable holy hell days, these traditions of men, That is because you don't, and call yourself a believer. It's only because you don't know who it is you're dealing with. You're bringing Yahuwah down to the level of men. Man, that's why you can call Halloween, what do they call Halloween? Harvest Day. Then you take Easter and call it Resurrection Day. You see, you want to bring the Most High down to the level of man instead of letting the Most High bring you to the level of where He wants you to be, above fleshly man. And so she's still looking at him in a fleshly sense. Well, give me this well wherever it is. Show me where it is. She has never, the revelation has not occurred to her yet that he's talking about the Rahut. He's talking about something, that's spiritual in nature, but physically validated. Heard that? Something that's spiritual in nature, but physically validated. How do you validate something spiritual? By your works, by the actions. That's how you validate it, by the results. No different than in business. You validate it through the actual success of what you're doing. There's a business saying, don't confuse activity for results. Simply mean that you're busy doing nothing, because your business should conclude until accomplishments. The same thing, your walk with Yah, it should conclude in accomplishments. You should be growing. You should be going level to level to level. Like myself, many of us started off in Catholicism, the most paganistic, religion there is. But many of us were seeking and wanting to grow and wanted to know. So we didn't just stop and rest, in that one level of understanding. As we were seeking, the Most High. And I myself, from Catholicism to Protestant to Pentecostal to non-denomination, and searching and searching and searching. Until one day the root finally came back to me and said, son, do you want some of this living water? And of course I wanted that water, because I was studying the word, engaging the word. And he said, well, then stop a minute and look and see what it's talking about. I said, well, it's talking about us. It's talking about us who's being grafted in. He said, no, son, you weren't grafted in. You are he. And I know this is not proper English, but who gives a crap, right? He said to me, son, you're reading